If you stan Survivor Cagayan, then you stan the theme.
It's the high school cliques all over again.
The players.
Right?
Those people are smarter than me, but I think I can kick their asses.
The big move.
Check to see if this is valid for me.
The hilarious moments.
Dot.
Survivor Cagayan is the totally awesome season that gave us these burning questions. Is it a good strategy to dump out the tribe's food?
She could throw out the rice and still survive to the next round.
How do chickens reproduce?
First thing I'm teaching my child is how chickens F.
What sound does a llama make?
I'm supposed to talk llama to you.
The answers to those questions, plus epic tribal councils, heroic community runs, devastating mistakes, and more. Because you stan Survivor Cagayan, because you wear a Luzon buff to work out, and because you already ordered next year's Zaddy calendar. Admit it. This is why we stan Survivor Cagayan.
If I had to describe Survivor Cagayan in one word, I would say...
The one word that I would use to describe Survivor Cagayan is...
Survivor Cagayan in one word, I think just has to be...
Chaotic?
Chaos.
Iconic.
Insane.
Absolutely insane.
Unpredictable. Correct.
Amazing?
Epic.
It's a hot mess, right?
Unhinged.
Disappointing.
The myth of a Brains versus Brawn season had been percolating, in the alumni community for years. Like, I would show up at events and, Bob Crowley and Yao Man would take me off to the side, for our Brains alliance. But never in a million years did we think there was another B word that they could include in the theme, And when beauty came along, it was like the whole concept was blown open.
We have the hot people over here, and then we're going to get the smart hot people here. And then if we can just find a couple really buff hot people, and then they're here. And then we have magic, baby. We got a TV show.
3 tribes split up in a whole new way.
Brains, Brawn, and Beauty.
The theme of Brains versus Brawn versus Beauty, I think, has been fun in all the iterations, even in Australia where we got rid of the beauty.
Australian Survivor, a couple years after this, did a Brains versus Brawn season. They just eliminated the beauty because everybody in Australia is really hot for some reason.
It was one of the themes that was just simple, fun, and relatable.
Brains, beauty, Brawn themes resonates with so many people because basically it's high school. It's the high school cliques all over again, right? It's the nerds, it's the jocks, and then it's the beautiful popular people.
Everyone and anyone can fit into those themes.
Every fan had somebody to root for.
I'm a fashion model. I'm going to win them over with my looks. I was hoping for Brawn.
So when you combine all 3, beauty, bronze, and brains, you have outwit, outplay, and outlast.
First, I love that there is a theme. We got to bring back themes.
We haven't seen many themes in the new era, and I think that themes like this should come back.
Heroes, healers, and hustlers. What the hell is that? When I saw that, I was like, we jumped the shark. We've gone too far. But a theme like Cagayan, Brains, Beauty, and Brawn, it just makes more sense to me.
Really memorable and likable people.
Well, this cast is my favorite cast. Full stop.
The Survivor Cagayan cast came out, and it was such an exciting time because we had not had a full season of new players in a minute. Survivor kept bringing back returnees through a lot of the middle part of the 20s. And for the first time in a bit, we got our first original cast of people, and we couldn't wait to start talking about them.
She, please sit down right here. Well, we've been reviewing your file, and we think you have to go.
I don't know if you can tell, but I've been drinking this morning because I knew I was going to have to talk about the cast of Cagayan.
I think that the cast of Cagayan is one of the strongest casts that you will see in the history of Survivor. Every single person had their own shining moment if it wasn't their shining season. I just think everyone was so interesting. They all had different stories, and I really think that it's one of the better casts of Survivor. Well, all casts of Survivor are great, but this one's on the top of the great.
I always say that casting is 70 to 80% of a Survivor season, and Cagayan is my favorite newbie US Survivor season, and the season that I recommend anyone starts their US Survivor watch with.
But this is what Survivor's all about, baby. I think it's personalities that make a season, and Survivor 28 had 18 really good personalities.
You have hypercharged characters out of like every corner of like the stat bubble of survivors. You have people who are incredibly brainy.
How did we come up with the criteria for brains? I'd like to see that data.
And people who are incredibly intuitive.
6-4. Guess what? They could get rid of you and they still have 5.
People who are incredibly either cute or hot, depending upon who you ask. And just, it's like you're watching the X-Men of Survivor players playing this game.
You've been divided into 3 tribes based on 3 of the qualities it takes to succeed in this game.
Jeff announced right as filming started, Brains versus Brawn versus Beauty, I started to pack my bags.
When I first arrived on the mat with the Brains tribe, I thought we're screwed.
As you saw, a great disadvantage to be a brain in a brain tribe.
The theme of Brains, Beauty, Brawn, it didn't really, to me, it was just a gimmick, you know, and putting labels on people. So if you say someone's a brain and maybe they weren't planning to showcase that they were smart, you take away part of their gameplay right out of the gate.
In the real world, we were all smart, but on Survivor, we were just like everybody else.
Disaster for the Brain Tribe.
The Brain Tribe was exactly how I felt from K through 12 in elementary school, all through high school, is, those people are smarter than me, but I think I can kick their asses.
I mean, Luzon was full of a bunch of people who are used to not being questioned and being in authority.
Engineering, I think I'm the smartest person here, hands down.
So that is a recipe for disaster. And it was full of a bunch of book smart people who didn't know how to open a coconut.
I think the Brain Tribe for me, ooh.
Telling people they're smart who already know they're smart, and who have no common sense. That's just bad all around. Great TV, but bad for a tribe.
Being labeled by the game as a particular trait is incredibly stressful and puts a lot of pressure on you. I have incredible empathy for the Brains Tribe to be labeled the Brains Tribe. That means literally anything they do that doesn't work out, they'll be called idiots, and they should have known better.
Whatever brains they have clearly evaporated 72 hours into this game.
I feel like the Brains tribe is one of the most iconic tribes in Survivor history. Like Luzon, especially their name was Luzon and they kept losing. It kind of was right there in the narrative, and they kick off the season in such an incredible way.
Loved paying a special attention to the Brains, obviously, because there's some invested interest there, and watching what a hot mess disaster they were. You know, you think you're going to go on Survivor and have the best experience possible, and then you end up with this group of clowns like that. That was so fun to watch.
That team sucks. They deserve to lose after that. That's all I can say.
You know, when we have a little dweeb in a jacket and Mr. 0% body fat, and then Spencer, you know, as our muscle, and then me, Jatia, and Tasha, I did not feel like we had a great chance on the Brains tribe.
I mean, we overthought everything.
Going into the game, I wanted to be as quiet as possible, even though my personality doesn't necessarily allow that. And when he asked for a leader, I was a little deflated.
We're going to choose a leader from each tribe.
I tried to deflect onto Spencer, and then I tried to deflect onto Kass, and they all just said, hey, you know, you're the old guy in the blazer. Why don't you do it?
Because of a blazer?
And at that point, I just didn't want to fight, so I did.
The leaders of each group are now going to decide who is the weakest.
The first thing that Jeff asked me to do as leader of the Brains tribe was to select the weakest member of my tribe without giving any frame of reference as to why we were choosing that. Was this person going to get put onto a different tribe? Was this person going to do a challenge?
If you have to get rid of somebody, who do you get rid of?
David Samson opened his mouth. I can't remember exactly what David Samson has said, but it had all of us looking like, huh?
Visions like this often, and I'm going to go with him.
Wow, you didn't even think about.
Garrett had Garrett was the guy who had like the no strategy, right? Where he thought that everybody should just sit around the shelter. And maybe that was also because he had so little body fat that he was just exhausted.
I don't want to play Survivor to survive in the wilderness.
So like he couldn't stand the idea of going off into the woods and strategizing. So he was like, if we all just sit here and are tired together, then there's no strategy to control, which was very innovative. And then I think he was voted out.
We've added Garrett to the 17th place group chat. He does not seem to be interested.
You're asked before the game, who do you think is going to win? You don't know what tribe you're on. Who do you think is not going to win, and who don't you want to play with? I said, I'll tell you one thing. That guy over there is not going to win. And I was pointing at Tony. And then I said, there's one guy I don't want on my tribe. That guy. And I was pointing at Garrett.
Garrett Alderstein looked like the person that was going to easily win this game. They're like, this guy with all the abs is a brain. All he has to do is just be normal, and he just refused to do that.
We need to talk separately. It's all out in the open.
Right out of the gate, I was blindsided by everyone when they got David out.
To this day, obviously, I am remembered well as a first boot. People come up to me all the time to talk about it. And I try to show them my World Series ring. Do you want to talk about baseball? Do you want to talk about Wall Street? No. Tell me about being the first boot.
Watching this strong guy get voted out for being an absolute klutz at the game over somebody who threw out the rice, you knew the rest of the season was going to be great.
How can you talk about Survivor Cagayan without talking about Jatia throwing the rice in the fire?
I remember Jatia in the challenges, and bless her heart, Jatia is one of the closest people to me from this season. And Jatia is a go-getter. Jatia is a nuclear engineer scientist, Dr. Jatia Hart Taylor. Put some respect on her name. My girl is smart. Okay, so let's start there. My girl Jatia is smart. Okay, she thinks she could do everything.
When Garrett gave kind of the order for silence, when he silenced the tribe, that was kind of like I had hit my point, right? I'm like, this guy is really telling us, what we can and can't do. We can't talk, we can't do this. I was fed up.
The dumping out the rice, it's a little bit like the breakup where the person ends up like throwing all the clothes on the lawn. You come home, something's wrong. Somebody's angry. You don't have to necessarily be a detective to figure it out.
I'm going in like a crazy one, like a banshee. That's why they had people guarding you. I was like the mental patient, and then you left the mental patient alone, and I went crazy.
You can throw rice into the fire and still survive a tribal. That's something you can do because strategy is important.
Jatia, oh my God.
The idea that there's an individual on this program who dumped all of the rice, all of the food, the new era people would kill for rice. I think some of them have. Sifu was wielding machete for a couple days.
And it was just funny watching Jatia, honestly. I knew when she poured the rice out, I said, that girl's in trouble.
Who poured rice on the fire? I don't know, the rice fairy?
I cannot believe a woman who admittedly struggled at the challenges, who dumped out a tribe's supply that would make Liz Wilcox have a full-on meltdown upon seeing it in modern-day LEDs. I'm pissed! Does all that and still gets kept in the game.
She dumps all the rice, and she still doesn't go in 17th place. She escapes 17th place.
Garrett was bad enough at the game that the girls were willing to choose someone who destroyed all of our food over him, which is crazy.
She had a setup where it was so good to where she could throw out the rice and still survive to the next round.
I do not recommend dumping out the rice as a strategy.
I don't mean to sound conceited, but I think we're beauty.
In the Survivor world, what beauty meant is that you lean on your charisma and your social characteristics to build those relationships.
I just really remember Jeff saying, welcome to season 28, Brawn, and Beauty. And I was like, well, what tribe am I on? I know I'm not on the Beauty tribe. And then I started looking around. I was like, oh, maybe we really are on the Beauty tribe.
When I found out that I was on the Beauty tribe, I was a little taken aback because I felt like, not to sound like I'm boosting my ego or anything, at that time I was at Northwestern, so my whole life was Brain's brain.
I'm from the suburbs of Chicago, and I'm a student right now, so I go to Northwestern, and I'm a junior.
If you were to put a gun to my head, say, what tribe do you think you truly were meant to be on? I would say Beauty, because I think my leading trait is like my charisma. I lean on that more than I lean on, my book smarts. I think that's gotten me further in life in a lot of ways than my brain has. That sounds horrible.
I want to be a mirror to other people so that when people see me, they can see the beauty in themselves. And so I actually really wear being a part of Solana, the beauty tribe, as a badge of honor.
Beauties, I was like, oh, okay, yeah. Not that they were not beautiful, because, beauty is in the eye of the beholder, but, they are not my ideal of beauty.
I don't really understand why he's on this tribe. I don't think he's that beautiful, and we're supposed to be the beautiful tribe.
My impression of the beauty tribe was they were really cute, especially Brice. I'm like, okay.
Well, my first impression of the beauties was definitely that they were all beauties. Especially LJ. I was like, oh gosh, he's cute. And then of course he ends up from Boston. I'm like, of course he's a masshole. He has to be, because I think he's cute. He's a Boston boy. That's probably why I thought he was cute from afar without even knowing. Oh God, kill me now.
I feel like, nowadays, Tony's going on The Traitors, everybody's doing some other show, but clearly Trish and LJ should maybe be on MILF Manor, possibly. That's something that I think that we all need to see.
At the time, I was really into LJ. I really, that's sort of my, my bias has always been, these chiseled jawed alpha guys. I mean, obviously LJ going and getting the idol in the middle of the storm is everybody's favorite moment from Cagayan. So I think we all kind of treasure that moment.
Can I tell something that I didn't tell nobody?
Probably the biggest blindside in Cagayan was when Jeremiah decided to reveal that he was, wait for it, a male model on the beauty tribe.
I'm a fashion model.
It's like, oh my God, Figgy and Taylor are in a relationship. Sandra's the queen. Okay. That was supposed to be a secret.
I thought Jeremiah was super cute. I still think Jeremiah is cute.
Jeremiah was really cute.
I've always had a flirtatious about me, right? So I knew how to flirt. I knew how to twinkle my eye at the right time, smile at the right time. You just got to sit back and just turn and look. And
How can I talk about this cast without talking about the real winner of this season, Brice Izyah? Brice was only on for a few episodes, and he made such iconic television that we really can't get enough of him.
All of her crayons in the crayon box aren't bright.
Brice, I think, is beautiful.
Brice, a testament. Not everybody can pull off purple pants.
So our first tribal, well, my only tribal, let's start there. My only tribal was a very interesting tribal. I think when you watch Survivor from the screen as opposed to being on the actual show, you look at the screen and you're like, what are you doing? Why would you do this, right? And I am an emotional being. My flaws and all, I am on a road to a better Brice. And at that point in time, the road hadn't started. And so when I knew that it was Alexis coming for me and that tribal, I knew two things. I knew I had to fight for my life. And I knew that more than likely this would be the only time, this would be my last time to be seen. And so I knew that, listen, on that beach and everywhere else where I wasn't really showing up as my full self, listen, Brice Izyah has clocked in.
Jeff, I feel like everyone should pull their own weight around camp,
Dot.
That tribal was very funny. It's I also feel like a part of my tribal, people always talk about the ... part, but I feel like I gave a classic read when you do your exit and they're like, how do you feel? I'm like, listen, I hope Morgan goes far. And so the rest of the people on them tribe, I don't even remember their name.
I really hope Morgan does well, and to the rest of their people, I don't even remember their names.
What's next? And a decade later, let's just be clear. There can only be one. Purple pants, badass, and she reigns supreme. ...
It's something that I hear in my sleep like a Drake diss. It keeps waking me up in the middle of the night because I'm thinking, yeah, what do he mean by that? And also, why did it hit so hard? Why did he eat? Is he mother? Let's find out.
I don't think I've ever been close to a live chicken.
I did adore the fact that they had no understanding of animal husbandry or any sort of biology whatsoever.
Does like the rooster have to get it on with one of the hens to make
I was
eggs?
wondering that.
Reopen the schools, I say. First thing I'm teaching my child is how chickens F.
Watching the beauty tribe win a bunch of chickens and have no idea how chicken reproduction worked, it was painful. It was like watching, Pagong against Tagi in season 1.
Are you needed for a hen to lay eggs? Yes or no? I'll take that as a no.
Are they like asexual?
I am no better than a hot person. I don't know the logistics of how, one, are they having sex, chickens? I guess they are. I've never seen it. I don't care to.
I have a turtle, shout out to Kimmy, and my turtle lays eggs. And my turtles by themselves. And so I remember Jeremiah being like, she's doing something that night.
What makes them make eggs? They have to be in a thing, like a heat lamp.
In terms of, I guess, how does a chicken reproduce? Like, humans, we have eggs. Do you need a rooster? No, you don't. It's 2024. These chickens don't need a rooster, to tell them what to do. They produce those eggs on their own.
Sir, I have a few questions if you don't mind. All right, perfect. How did you feel about the beauty tribe not understanding how you reproduce? Preposterous, I know. I know, and they were farmers too, weren't they?
I don't know how soon after the egg falls out you can eat it. I think that might be an ethical dilemma, a moral situation you're faced with.
Listen, first of all, the whole chicken thing, not a single person on that beach gave me the right answer.
But I really think everyone's just pretending to know and they don't know.
I fact checked it after I left. All I wanted was a straight and correct answer for how these eggs are coming, and I had a good reason for it. I also wanted to know, like, how do we get these hens to just spit out a ton of eggs? I was hungry, so I'm like, does the rooster have to be around to get them aroused, get them pumping eggs, even if it's not fertilized? These are real questions.
Nobody knows how a chicken is born. I don't understand.
But I do know that how a chicken is born. I just didn't know how an egg was born. Does that make sense? Just call me if you have questions about it. I can explain it to you.
Well, we're gonna stomp on beauty and we're gonna stomp on the smarts.
The Brawn tribe is just what they are. They're so brawny, right? We expect them to do well in competitions. I think there was a moment where Uncle Cliff is shooting basketballs from like one knee because he's 18 feet tall. And it's iconic. It's like, we have a real life NBA legend on this team shooting basketballs. And it could only happen on the Brawn tribe.
I was so happy to be on the Brawn. I really was.
When I first saw the Brawn tribe, I was like, this is going to be a cakewalk.
Brawn tribe working together very well.
Funny, when I came home and people found out that I was on Survivor and it was Brain, Brawn, and Beauty, people were like, so what were you on, the Brawn or the Beauty? And I was like, why? You didn't think I'd be an option for the Brains?
The Brawn tribe, when I saw them, I mean, you see a guy who's like 6'8", and you see little fireplug Tony, and you see Wu, who looks like the epitome of an athlete. And Sarah Lacina looked like I have in my notes, she was an MMA fighter, because that's what I thought she looked like, very fit. Even Trish, though she was thin, she was very muscular. So you looked at that tribe and they were very intimidating.
I was so happy to see the members of my tribe when we all became on the Brawn team, because clearly we were going to completely kick ass in all of the physical challenges. So I was like, hell yeah. I have an opportunity right up front to get on the winning team. So that was really, when I was looking around at them and their muscles were literally having babies.
No matter what you tell anybody, you can't trust them. I don't trust nobody here. None of them. And I'm sure they don't trust me.
I never looked at Tony. Honestly, I didn't think Tony would last at all.
And you hear his accent and you're like, can't even do his accent. Like, I'm Tony.
Pretty cool girl, Sarah. You know what? I got a confession to make. Want me to tell you the truth?
Yeah.
I'm not a cop.
You're lying to me.
I'm not.
You are.
I thought you were going to say, no way, no, get out of here.
Yeah, just tell
Or the Boston accent, whatever he's given. And it felt like maybe his personality would be a little bit too big, too bold to mesh with his tribe. So my assumption was that there would be a little bit of clashing heads over there.
I was like, who is this guy? I could definitely tell that she was like in some type of law enforcement because she was so observant, so like, but I could also see her friendly side. And every morning we would get coffee and she would look at me and I would look at her and I'll be like, hey.
Will you be honest with me? Are you a cop?
No, why?
You swear?
I swear.
You look like a cop.
I could be a cop if you want. Why?
Tony and I, when we get off on our own, I'm like, hey, all right. Cops don't do well on these shows, so I know you're probably trying to keep it a secret, but are you a cop? And he's like, no. And I'm like, well, you just gave it away. You look like a cop. You look like...
I have a tattoo here. They don't allow that.
How do you know?
I have plenty of cop friends.
Is he the coppiest cop ever?
Turns super paranoid, and he's like, no, I'm a construction worker, blah, 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 blah.
That?
What do you do?
Construction, tiles.
Yeah. If you are a construction worker, please don't come near anything I live in, build anything, any structure that I'm going to be entering, because this is terrible.
First episode, Tony goes out and he finds an idol the first night he's in the water. He puts the idol on his neck and he says, oh my God, this is huge. I needed this.
This is huge. I needed this.
And then has some kind of convulsion. Seems like he needed this very badly. Oh, 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 oh.
I'm king of the jungle.
I was excited to get to meet them, especially Cliff Robinson, because I was a basketball fan and I knew immediately who Cliff was. And I was like, please let him last so I can meet him because I was a fan.
Of course, Cliff stood out to me, and Cliff is so funny. We had so much fun.
I clearly took notice to Cliff. To Uncle Cliffy. I was like, wow, he is really, really tall and he is so motivating.
Rest in peace, Cliff. It seemed like he was having kind of the time of his life out there. So I could tell that he was bringing good vibes to the tribe.
How do you have a Brawn tribe who is just so brawny that they just physically cannot lose a competition? Like, you have like a basketball player being like, I'm gonna throw this basketball competition, but Brawn is so interwoven in their personality that they're not able to throw a competition, and the Brains tribe is just so inept that they weren't able to throw it. I think it's so funny.
Brawn wins immunity, sending a Brain tribe to tribal council once again.
I remember the top 5 baby moment. I remember watching it. I remember exactly where I was in my parents' old house. And I was so angry. I was like, you can't win now. Like,
immunity! This is it, top 5, top 5, top 5, baby.
Top 5 baby has become a part of my personal lexicon. Like, I will say that about basically any group of 5 things now in my life. Like, and nobody will have any idea what I'm talking about. You know, I'll be like, oh, 5 apples, top 5, baby.
He was just screaming top 5 baby, top 5 baby. And I knew that was going to be just, I'm going to have to scramble now.
You know what? I could approach Kass. I feel like I've got a pretty good relationship with her.
There's no taking away from what Tony was able to do, but I don't think that Tony is nearly as successful without Trish. Trish is like Tony's personal fixer who comes in. Tony makes a big mess. Trish is the one who smooths things over, works out all the details. Come on, get in here. Like, Tony doesn't mean it. You know how he is. They're feeling good just so Tony could do it again tomorrow.
Yeah, baby. Top 5, Jeff. Yeah, top 5, baby. Look at my muscles. They're still here.
How are you gonna go and yell top 5 baby at the top of your lungs and still manage to flip someone who was not a part of the top 5 to go and help you in your future case?
Tony yelling top 5 baby, that was wild. Like, everybody knows you don't name an alliance with a number ever, because somebody's always gonna be 6, Tony.
I counted 5 people over there, and I wasn't standing over there.
And 5 into 11 is, or 5 into 11 is out, Tony. So you need a top 6, baby. And you know, it's so fascinating though to watch such a big player make such a dumb move and still recover from it. It was wild.
I looked over and I saw Sarah's face and I was like, oh my God, you're an idiot. You're a complete idiot. Why would you do that?
Why do you think you're top 5 when you have less numbers?
Because I was not planning on going 5 with them. I wanted to go grab Sarah back. And I knew that once Sarah's feelings were hurt, I knew what type of person she was. That was going to be the end of it. And it was for her.
Tony, Trish, Jeffrey, LJ, and Woo. So the only 2 of the top 5, baby, who made the top 5 were Tony and Woo, right? Because Trish was not top 5. No, because Trish was like 6 or 7. Yeah.
Pretty sure Trish was in the top 5, baby.
That's so sad. You know, you want that top 5 baby to really mean something.
We did have to work together, you know, to save ourselves, myself, Tasha, and Spencer. And we quickly found cracks within the beauty tribe and then exploited those.
The brain needed a body. We found our zombies, now we're in.
And then Alexis was just trying too hard at that point to run the game.
They voted me out or blindsided me because they all thought I was going to flip, which I wasn't going to, probably.
If she's going to destroy the game, I want to have the preemptive strike. I want to destroy it.
When I think of Chaos Cass, I mean, how can you not think of chaos? It's in her name. I think she's one of the first Survivor players that came on the show and then received branding as she was on the show. I don't know if she called herself Chaos Cass or we did it as an audience first.
And once again, Chaos Cass will show up at Tribal.
But it fit, and then she leaned into it, and it carried her on right through the season. And I just remember people just loving to hate Cass, people rooting for Cass. She was so combative during the season, but she also had us fighting at home. Why is this lady doing this to us? She's chaotic. She called it. I love it.
Cagayan merge, what can I say? That's where the legend of Chaos Cass began. And I have had to defend this for more than a decade, my decision, as either being the stupidest player ever or just an emotional woman.
Cass will fly in the face of strategy just because of how she feels.
I mean, I'm kind of tired of it at this stage of life. I'm in my 50s now. I still go to Costco and people are like, Chaos Cass!
The tribal council where Sarah was blindsided was epic.
Oh, I bet you the rest of the season was boring because so much stuff happened in us. And they were like, no, it got even better. I was like, it got even better.
Why don't you look at these 6 faces right here? Look what's going on right here, Jeff.
Looking back to the Sarah blind side, that was so interesting because, you know, the knowledge which I had in Survivor was that if you're in the middle, that's the best place to be. And Sarah clearly came with that knowledge where it's like, I'm in the middle, it's the best place to be. But then Tony figured out, you know what? Cass does not like how Sarah has the power. I can give Cass the power and then flip it over.
Did you see that little cat fight? That thing that went down today, I don't think that Cass is feeling too comfortable.
The merge vote is, I think, one of my favorite moments of the season, one of my favorite moments ever, because it just speaks to these incredible characters and brings out all of them. I always think about Tony clapping when Sarah goes, the applause that they've got one over to save, like poor sweet Jeffrey in that spot. It's the blind side of the blind side of the blind side of the audience. So you've got Sarah's ego and wanting to be the swing vote being voted out, which is one of my favorite moves in Survivor history, coined by the incredible Rob Cesternino, to really, because I always say it's one of my favorite moves because there's no further to fall than the power of being the swing vote into being voted out as a swing vote. So that happens to Sarah, and we see kind of that ego, someone who's going to eventually be a Survivor winner, these rivalries that are going to continue through in these relationships through to even season 40 and the epicness of that and the impact that will have on the rest of Survivor history. Then you have the kind of emergence of Chaos Cass zero chance of winning the game. Spencer being frustrated in that. It's so good. It's the fact that you think, the idol play doesn't work, they're gonna lose. But no, because Kass is flipped, it's a roller coaster. And it is truly one of the most exciting votes I think I've seen in Survivor.
If anybody has a hidden immunity idol and you want to play it, now would be the time to do so.
In Survivor Cagayan, the idols were important. We didn't really see big idol plays through a lot of the 20s on Survivor. It had been a minute. And so you have a tribal council where multiple idols are being played for other people. This is something that is not happening regularly on Survivor at this point in time.
Kass swears, by the way, that if Wu had picked her, she would have won. So in Kass's mind, like, this was a very viable winning end game strategy. At the time, there were all these examples like Cochran flipping in South Pacific, where you're thinking like, this was a terrible move, great television. The double bromance idol play that was just like chest thumping guys, but actually completely irrelevant to what was the actual strategy, was sort of hilarious, because it was so interesting that Tony's like, well, if it's not me, it must be the other big manly man. And in fact, like the whole dynamic strategy of the episode came down to these two women, right? It was Sarah and Kass not liking being bossed around by Sarah, and therefore like taking the ownership of the strategy into her own hands. And it had nothing to do with like, we are the men and they must be coming for us.
In my view, no one in this game should have that much power. Who made her queen?
Yeah, so being the first time I had played, I was like the popular girl at that point because everybody needs my vote. So I'm sitting there. I mean, you would have thought people were carrying me around on a whatever those are that like a throne and parading me around because I'm like, you guys need me. I mean, your guys' fate is in my hands.
You want to pick a fight with me? I'll flip over with those other guys.
Boy, was I wrong.
I also think of the Sarah Lacina vote out where I was like, girl, you got the power. What are you doing? And
he's got that idol around his neck. We all start looking around and we're like, okay, the other one. Because at this point, Tony has the idol. Let's not even chance it. Let's go with the other one, which is Jeffra. So we're all saying the other one, the other one.
Look at this.
Okay. And we go vote and Tony gets up to play this idol and he's like, I'm going to play this for my man LJ because I think he's the other one. Jeff, let's see if I read these people correctly.
Let's see if I read these people correctly, Jeff. All right.
And I'm like, well, you didn't.
Hey, Jeff, can you validate this for me? My parking meter is about to expire. I need a parking pass. Come on. I don't want to get a ticket. I know I'm a cop, but I can't get out of it.
And LJ is like, oh, well, hey, brother, I'm going to cover your ass. And he gets up and plays it for Tony.
It's like Tony and LJ are out to dinner. The check comes. Tony's like, okay, LJ, I got it, my man. LJ's, no. I got it. It's on Tony. Come on. It's on me. You're embarrassing me. I got it. Listen. Your money's no good here, Tony.
And now it's even better because Tony's going, yeah.
So any votes for Tony?
And we're like, you have no idea. Just wait.
Sarah's the president. All she has to do is go with the side that I like. They're playing idols left and right. They're playing idols incorrectly.
Jeff pulls out the first vote.
Jeffra.
They all go. It's the funniest thing because it was like they were so inflated and then just, I was pretty confident that I wasn't going home. The whole other group of 5 just looks completely deflated and just like, oh my gosh, we just got our asses kicked. And we're like, yeah, you did. And Jeff pulls it out and he's like, Sarah. And I'm like, motherfucker.
We're tied. 5 votes Jeffra, 5 votes Sarah, 1 vote left.
When Sarah got blindsided, that was for me because I just knew Sarah was going to go far just from the Sarah that I had seen prior and the little bit that I had seen in the game. I knew that she was able to kind of control it, but to see Sarah's blind side, and especially like with that decision that she had, it's like, girl, you should have played it safe.
Seventh person voted out, and the first member of our jury. Sarah.
She flipped.
And then also, I love how Spencer felt the need to go in future, like to prophesy that Kass now has 0% chance of winning the game.
Kass, 0 chance of winning the game.
The planning that it took to go into that tribal council. On that particular episode, we were calling an audible, like, okay, the other one. So we had a backup plan to the backup plan. And so we were on point with our strategy. Had Kass not flipped, we would have totally taken out Tony's idol, taken out LJ's idol, and taken out Jeffra in the process, which would have totally changed the tide, right?
Now they're acting like they won the Super Bowl, and it's like, hey, you guys realize you did make some really bad plays. Kass is the reason this happened, not anything. You guys didn't do anything correctly. So let's stop acting like we just hit the game-winning home run. Kass hit it for you.
The merge vote for me in Cagayan was basically me just saying it's an individual game right now. I don't have any true allies, and I'm going to do what's best for me. I did that. People got mad at me. I got death threats. I mean, for voting out Sarah Lacina, who now we've come to see Sarah Lacina as one of the most dominant players in Survivor history. She's a badass.
Man, I was so bitter. I was so young when I played. It was 10 years ago, but I was so bitter after I got out of that game because I got real bad.
Huh. They got me good.
The number one thing I learned from Cagayan and the merge vote was never, ever put a bitter person on the jury. That was my big mistake at the merge, was underestimating how bitter the first juror could be and how that bitterness could spread throughout the jury house.
And you lie. And you lie to people's faces. And you stab people in the back.
So my big mistake, and what I learned, and I would carry with me into Cambodia, was the most important person in the game, if you want to win, is the first person you put on the jury. And how you do it. And preferably, you have nothing to do with it.
It made for such an epic tribal council that truly I wouldn't change it. Like, if I could go back, I want that to happen the exact same way all over again.
Tony, is well known for his bag of tricks. And what's fascinating about the bag of tricks is that you do not know what is in the bag of tricks. And the only thing that made this possible was the infamous super idol, the idol with special powers, i.e. the Tyler Perry idol. One of the things that ends up in Jeff's suggestion box from Tyler Perry, like we all have. I mean, I don't know what you get in your Tyler Perry suggestion box. Mine, I won't speak of.
And this is an idea that was actually texted to me after the last finale by Tyler Perry. We'll call it the Tyler Perry idol.
This Tyler Perry idol, I feel like I'm the most equipped to talk about this here. I know you've interviewed a few people, but I feel like if anybody's going to talk about a Tyler Perry production, it's got to be somebody I've seen on a lot of church buses, okay? I've seen a lot of Tyler Perry productions, and this felt very much like that. Tony had this wild advantage of being Tony, and then he got the special idol that Tony created, hoping that somebody like Spencer would beat him, but only to see Tony wield it like a sword and just destroy everybody in the season.
The Tyler Perry idol is obviously not my favorite twist. It's overpowered. It speaks to the quality of the season, that it doesn't tank the season. But I think for it to be in Tony's hands, like, people describe Tony as an idol player, but Tony's not an idol player as you think of like a Kelly Wentworth, who was the underdog, who did get 9 votes that needed to be negated. Tony was on the right side of all the votes. Tony doesn't need idols to protect himself, but he uses idols offensively. He scared people with the impact of what he could have.
After you see the votes, you can use it. Everybody's eyes say, bing!
Tyler Perry idol was extremely annoying. It was an overpowered idol that could be played after the votes. As everyone watching this probably already knows, the idea for the idol came from Tyler Perry. You know, of course, this was not a new invention in Survivor history.
Tyler Perry texts Jeff and says, hey, we should have an idol. You can play it after the votes are read. Innovative. Never been seen before, except for season 13 when it was seen before.
It really shuts down the strategy this season, because in order for an alliance to take that person out, they basically have to waste 2 votes. So you have to kind of, you know, it's just so much strategic effort to eliminate the person who has that idol that it becomes like way too punishing for the other alliance to do it. But and so in the chaos of Survivor, as you're kind of moving vote to vote, you never think to yourself, well, we can just throw this vote away and hope it's not my name that he writes down, you know. And so you always like find a different target, and then that person who has it has like just an enormous advantage.
If I am sitting on this idol, if people try to target me, they know one of them is going home, and it's whoever I choose, or whatever my minority alliance chooses.
I just want to get rid of one guy.
You can't. You can't.
Right there.
You can't.
Yeah, I
Yes,
can.
you can't.
Okay.
So not only is it more powerful and it's easier for me to play in the sense that I can just use it. Oh, I guess I was voted out. Not anymore. It's a game of Russian roulette for the people trying to vote me out. So it adds an additional level of fear for how you attack this. And it's probably the reason why this format of Idol has never actually been attacked.
Tony played it very slyly, right? Because he didn't just use its power as its power. He claimed that what the secret power of his secret idol could do was he could play it one tribal council past.
If Tony is actually guaranteed the final 3 like he claims, it's going to mean problems for me.
It ended up giving him enough in an aura of protection that that I think maybe that stopped people from taking a shot at him.
To feel just about hopeless and then be given a golden ticket to new life in the game is incredible.
Spencer and Tasha's journey was such an entertaining journey. I think it's even better that it doesn't work out. Is that, like, as sad as that is, this was not the narrative that was meant to build to the win, but we're like, there's so much frustration in the losses that I kind of feel like it had to amount to the loss. But I feel like we were on the roller coaster with them. They'd get like immunity wins, or they would go along with these plans and get wins with Tony, only for him to turn right back on them.
Spencer is every single 21-year-old university student who feels that they're so smart and prefrontal cortex isn't fully developed, which is okay.
The moment in Survivor Cagayan that really stood out to me was Tasha's run on winning immunity and winning the challenges. My girl was doing it.
Tasha wins individual immunity.
And I don't think that's talked about enough. Like, yeah, they ran around looking for the idol and blindside and that sort of thing. But come on, she was killing it. And I love to see that. I don't think people talk about how much she's a challenge beast enough. So I'm gonna give my girl her props. That's what really stood out to me.
I'm super smart. I have what it takes to win this game.
The first line in that hot mess video was, "Hey, I'm Tasha. I live in St. Louis, Missouri, and I'm a triple threat. I have beauty, brains, and brawn." I kid you not. That was my first line of the audition video.
Tasha came onto the season, and I thought she's very smart. She looks athletic. This is a perfect spot for her. She could have gone on any of these tries.
So the theme was already set. The people were already chosen, except for the last 2 brains, and I just happened to say the theme. So it was meant for me to be on Cagayan, and that theme means so much to me because that line got me on that season.
He was, you know, the last Black person standing too, and that's hard position to be in, especially in a game that at that time, you know, anything that made you an other got you out.
Everybody knows that when you get 3 extra days in the game, anything can happen. Like, the tide turns so quickly. So for me, winning immunity challenges was just another opportunity to stay in the game and make things happen.
Tasha in these competitions, she was crazy. I was watching her every week thinking, everybody's looking at Spencer, but Tasha is the one to beat.
I'm probably the villain, but everything I did was survival based. I came out here to win $1 million, and my focus is still to win $1 million.
I didn't realize I was rooting for Tony until the very end. Like, I had him as the antagonist because he was insane, and it was so much fun, but I wasn't rooting for this crazy person. I was rooting for Spencer and Tasha, the underdogs.
Watching this in the real time back in 2014, I was definitely rooting for the underdog brains. I was rooting for Spencer, Tasha, and Kass, even though Kass was in the majority alliance by the end. I wanted them to do well after being so downtrodden at the beginning of the game. And I confess, I had an affinity for Spencer. And he was such a rootable underdog. He went from being almost brash, overconfident character going in and got knocked down and forced into humility in a really likable and relatable way by the end of the season.
I'm definitely the odd man out right now. I'm gonna have to resort to all kinds of crazy creative ideas just to have a shot at this thing.
So it was, I was pulling for Spencer in such a big way. So when he finally got knocked out right before the end, I'm like, oh, okay, well, who's going to win this?
How could you not root for Spencer? Tyler Perry made Jeff Probst change the rules of the game for Spencer. I'm telling you, this guy, I knew he was going to be a legend the moment we saw him, and he really is.
I loved Spencer. Spencer was like my safe place in the game, and we had some really cool moments where we were just like encouraging each other, because sometimes it looked like I was going home, sometimes it looked like he was going home. So to have that person that was with you from the beginning just be there, like to you just look over and you see your person and you're like, yes, okay, life is good.
It was really exciting to watch Spencer and Tasha try so hard. And you had, Tasha winning immunity after immunity, and you had her collaborating with Spencer on, all of these strategic ploys to pull over Tony's alliance and flip the game. And it was really exciting to watch. I was rooting for Tony. I mean, Tony was just such great television. He was so fun.
Oh my God. Wow.
I always root for the villains, and I do sort of, like, while I love to root for, the brainy characters, you kind of want them to fail. You don't want them to, like, do better than you did, So, like, runner-up is fine for a brainy, a glasses-wearing character. Spencer didn't have glasses, nor did Tasha, but, that's their archetype. They should have glasses.
I'm gonna pull out something out of my arsenal, which is my ninja stealth mode.
Ninja stealth mode was one of my favorite moments, like, in Survivor history, because he just made it so fun. He had all the gestures, and this is like I'm dabbing, but he wasn't dabbing. He was doing like cool ninja gestures.
Boom, Sonic the Hedgehog style.
He was like a cartoon character. He compared himself to Sonic the Hedgehog, but he also fell out of a papaya tree trying to get fruit. He had a very sensual affair with ribs that he won with tangy barbecue sauce at the Survivor auction.
Wu gets his clothes and says, "Oh, Spencer, you forgot these clothes." And then the clue falls out. And then Wu, the ninja stealth mode that he is, gets the clue, darts in the jungle, runs, he's a Brawn. He can run.
Like, he got the clue from Spencer's pants. Like, that was just like such an like a strange circumstance. Why did Spencer take off his pants? I don't really remember that. Like, I get like why he why did Spencer take off his pants? That's the great mystery of Cagayan.
Wu has ninja stealth mode. I feel like I have Depeche mode. I know a lot about 80s synth pop. I don't know how that would help me in this situation particularly.
Survivor Cagayan was the best thing that could have happened to the world of llamas.
I don't talk llama. I'm supposed to talk llama to you.
I mean, they launched llamas into popular culture even more than I would say Napoleon Dynamite did.
Hey, I put llama on the map, okay? Nobody knew what a llama sounded like before Tony came along.
Llamas are a relative of the camel, but they live on this side of the world. They're native to South America. They're domesticated, and they are descendants from a wild species of llama or llama ancestor called the guanaco. And they also they actually don't have any top incisors up here, so they look like they have an underbite all the time, like that. And they also, as a defense, can hork up material from their stomach. So llama spitting is actually regurgitating all over you. And you know what? If you treated them right, they wouldn't have done it to begin with.
The llama speak was just Tony completely frustrated with me because he couldn't get a rise out of me.
There's people that tell secrets, and there's people like you that go in and blow things up.
And he knew I was trying to destroy his game. And Tony is actually kind of like a llama, because when he gets mad, he puffs up and he spits at you.
And she calls me an animal. So I had to talk to her like I'm an animal. So I said,
what I can guarantee you is that Tony absolutely had no idea what llamas sound like.
You understand that better?
I mean, I've never actually heard a llama speak like that. So they're more subtle. They kind of hiss a bit and then spit, and they can spit good. So he was, more like a donkey, I think. His sound was closer to a donkey. So perhaps Tony is, I think he's an ass. He speaks ass.
You're making an ass of yourself.
So I have 2 children now, and when we're going through animal sounds, I legitimately use Tony's impression of a llama to describe what a llama says, to the point where I forgot if that's actually genuinely what they do or not. But I'll give you my best llama impression. You gotta get a lot of tongue action, I think, involved there. I think it was a little bit like...
Was it like something like that?
That was pretty good. I felt like that was okay.
Woo wins immunity.
Wu wins the final 3 immunity, and he has his decision. Do I take Tony, who's largely considered to be the strategist of the season, or do I take Kass, who everybody seems to dislike? What should he do? What should he do? Tony said, if you really value honor and integrity, you should take me. But if he wanted $1 million, maybe he should have taken Kass.
The most iconic moment, other than, of course, J'Tia throwing the rice in the fire, Wu deciding to take Tony to the final tribal council.
And he was able to convince Wu to take him to the final 2 rather than Kass, which was like one of the dumbest moves in Survivor history.
I'd be the stupidest Survivor player taking Tony Leon.
Bad move.
Wu taking Tony to the end is, I hate to be hyperbolic, but I'm going to say it, quite possibly the biggest moment in Survivor history for me. It's quite probably my favorite moment in Survivor history. And the reason for that is that it's everything that I love about Survivor. Everything we know about 2 amazing characters, Tony and Wu, for Wu to make what I think is probably the biggest mistake in Survivor history, to continue to be hyperbolic, but I really believe it, where he probably was going to win in an 8-1 vote. That's what all the jurors have said. And he loses in an 8-1 vote. Like, he literally flips it to the tune of $900,000.
My only regret is I should have told Wu at Final Tribal to just give me the immunity and let me make the decision, because he was incapable.
So I do think there's a world where Wu could have taken Kass and Kass could have won. I think there's this kind of like, we've all kind of written off Kass as a potential winner here, but I'm not totally out on that possibility. That said, it did look like if Wu wanted to win, he should have taken Kass.
I honestly don't know what Wu was thinking, taking Tony to the end.
I'm a different student, I guess. I wanted to take someone who deserved to go.
I think the thing that really makes Cagayan stand out is that if you are able to understand how players think, you are able to go and navigate your way to a win. And on paper, we see the final 3. We see that Tony doesn't win the final 3 immunity. It seems like he's dead in the water. But the thing is, he knew Wu. He was with Wu since day 1. And he knew Wu valued loyalty. So he went onto that loyalty pathway. And then Wu actually agreed with him and voted out Kass.
Still will never get over the fact that Wu brought Tony to the end with him. I'll never get over that. And obviously, neither will he.
Jeff walks with the vote. He's got the vote. He unveils the vote. It says Kass. I screamed so loud. I woke up my parents upstairs. My mom ran downstairs and said, what's going on? And I had to explain to her, let me just explain 14 episodes of the lore of this show real quick. She didn't care.
Wu wanted to take the strongest people to the end, and if he won, he could say, hey, I beat the best of the best, right?
It honestly was the most human moment I'd ever seen from Wu on the show, because this is a guy who got swayed in that moment from 38 days of working alongside this guy where he couldn't cut him. He couldn't make it happen. And so it is just this beautiful display to me about how tough it is to do well in Survivor, because for every one move you make well, there's about 50 billion moves that you cannot make well, and Wu just happened to have the odds not in his favor.
At the time, you know, just from watching this tribal council back and forth, it did feel like there was a world where Wu could have won. I mean, I guess it was just really edited very well, because ultimately Tony won in a blowout. It was an 8-1 vote, and Tasha was the only one who voted for Wu. Meaning that I still have the record as being the only loser in a final 2 to get 0 votes. So couldn't take that from me, could you, Wu?
The winner of Survivor Cagayan,
Unfathomable that someone like Tony could win. This guy was doing all of these antics that came off clownish to the audience. Like, what does he think he's doing? This is like if Zayn Knight lasted 39 days. What is going on? And like, there's no way this guy could win. And then at the very end, you realize, oh my God, he did. He did.
Love him or hate him, Tony played his ass off out here.
Spencer and I were really kind of team Tony. Like, he deserves to win because he played the game the hardest. Yes, he did screw all of us to get there, but what are we going to be? The losers, and that are disgruntled and give the wrong person the winner? Not that Wu didn't play the game, but he didn't play the game that Tony did. None of us did. That's why Tony won.
Wu took the L for the sake of the fans to win, if that makes sense. So while he lost, I believe the fans won.
There we go. If I lose, well, I keep my head up and know that I lost against
There you go. So. Can't argue with that.
It's a tragic decision he made, but I understand why he made it.
The thing that makes Cagayan so interesting is that you have people making the most massive Survivor no-no mistakes, and they still go with it. And when I say people, I mean person, and that person is Tony.
Tony is such a unique specimen because there has not ever been any other person who has matched being this incredible character with also this strategic game that he plays. And I say strategic, but it's also erratic and wild and unpredictable and all over the place. And usually these people do not go on to win the game. Somehow this guy has done it twice.
So Tony's win for a long time was my favorite win in Survivor history, as surpassed by Tony in Winners of War.
Tony has kind of ascended to be on the Mount Rushmore of Survivor, one of the two-time winners, the guy who won Winners at War with, one of the most dominating games ever. But at the time, Tony was an extremely polarizing figure. And I remember very vividly having arguments. People hated Tony. They found him super obnoxious. They found him, way too aggressive. And I loved him, but I did not think that he was necessarily playing a winning game. He was doing so much that was so great, but he was also doing all this other chaotic stuff. And you're like, there's no way this is going to pan out for you. It was so chaotic and so wild.
The big question at the time was, Tony can't do this. Tony's never going to be able to pull this off. And Tony pulled it off.
Tony is absolutely, hands down, no question, the best Survivor contestant that Survivor's ever had.
Tony is such a strong player that even without advantages, he would have found a way to scramble his way to the end.
And despite Tony's massive bag of tricks, as he loved to tell us, his bag of tricks was best when it was empty, when all he had to do was convince Wu to take him to the end instead of Kass.
Obviously, the right person won the game. Tony's a phenomenal player, and he's a great guy. He's so funny. He's got a huge heart. Everything Tony does is up a notch. There's a level of drama to it.
Jeff, do you see the inexperience in the young lad?
And this is where Tony excels. It's like the big grand flourishes that are really fun to watch and also have great strategy.
At the time, Tony's strategy for flipping back and forth seemed crazy to me and a lot of the audience. But I think that one of the beautiful lessons that I learned from Tony, and we should all learn from Tony, is we shouldn't be so narrow-minded as to what is a good winning strategy. It only takes one person to come along and show something new and interesting that either kind of works or, in Tony's case, really works, that changes how everyone views the game.
I felt like, how does he keep getting away with it? But he's so good. He's so strategic. He's smart. He's likable. how do you pull all of this off once and then do it again later on?
One thing that also, Tony was like always kind of the exception to the rule. And one thing that also differentiated Tony from every other Survivor winner is that he was absolutely chaotic on Twitter at the time. I think it was when he voted out LJ, which to a lot, this was back before it was just, you just had to vote out your allies. Right now, of course, you're voting out your allies. That's what you do on Survivor. Back in the day, people used to consider allies as the people you don't vote out. I think I criticized that because, of course, losing LJ was very hard for me, and I was going through a period of mourning. And Tony responds on Twitter by telling me that my glasses are covered in feces. So, they're not. They're very clear. These are the glasses. No feces. They're clean now. I mean, this was a lot of years ago, so I've had some time to clean. Time to clean them off.
The players were listening to the podcast. They were commenting back about things, and they had a lot to say. And this was something that just had not been happening prior to Survivor 28.
Tony was all over the place, telling Stephen about his glasses, iconic, famous Twitter moment.
These tweets came from Tony's account, but Tony later clarified that it was not him who sent them, that he was at a sleepover with some friends, as any middle-aged adult male would be. We all have slumber parties, and one of his friends took his phone, and you're hassling your buddies at a slumber party, so you tweet at random former reality TV contestants. I get tweets all the time from people at random sleepovers, so this was not unusual for me.
He was so frenetic, very, very nice, very sweet, so frenetic, and that's coming from a person who is frenetic. So I was just like, man, I felt like I needed to take a nap after I talked to Tony.
But he was very likable. He's like that guy who's annoying, but he's likable.
Playing Survivor with Tony was a very, very great experience. It was crazy. Tony's crazy. On the season, he would run around, he always had energy. He was up all night. Very funny. The Spy Shack was classic. And the funny thing is, we knew he was in the Spy Shack. He wasn't very hidden because he's not like a little guy. He's a big guy.
These moments are so much a part of overall Survivor lore that it's almost embarrassing to be like, oh, here was my favorite, the Spy Shack. You guys remember that? Everybody remembers the Spy Shack.
And that's when I came up with the idea, let me try to spy on them. So as I'm building the shelter, I'm trying to act like I'm trying to protect them from the rain and everything, but I'm building a spy shack.
Tony has this leave palm frond stick situation, a whole fort. I'm looking right now for a 1-bedroom in Brooklyn. Tony's place is $2,000 in Bushwick.
Tony to me is one of the most exciting players to watch. And I can watch him play all day long and on all types of different seasons. So I'm happy that he was first ever on our season because it made it extra exciting, kind of the new element that he brought to the game.
I'm glad Tony won. I'm glad I got to play. I've played 3 seasons. I've played all 3 seasons with him. It's just been such a journey with him.
I've never had the should-haves and would-haves and could-haves. I've always said I was so lucky to have that experience, and I learned so much from it. And I always feel so fortunate to have been able to be a contestant on Survivor. But to be a contestant on Survivor and to be able to play with the best Survivor there ever was, that just brings the whole experience to a whole new level.
I'm a huge Tony stan for life. He is, for me, I think the best character in global Survivor history. He's got it all. He's so funny. He's so unpredictable. He's so brash. But then also I connect to him as a human and actually genuinely love him.
So I definitely think Survivor Cagayan is a season that stands on its own. It's regarded by the fans as one of the best seasons ever.
From start to finish, Cagayan was just giving and serving in every way possible that you could want. If you want a villain, if you want heroes, if you want strong females, if you want your nerdy guy, it had everything.
Its legacy is one of the best Survivor seasons of all time.
I think that Survivor Cagayan reaffirmed that the most important thing in Survivor are the players, okay?
A lot of people really consider it to be the best all new player season, just because it had everything, right? Everybody was playing hard. It had so many unique and fun characters. It had, Tony, who played this like chaotic, unexpected, wild strategy and ended up winning the whole game. And it had, a lot of players who have come back and had a significant impact on the whole franchise.
Survivor Cagayan, to me, will always be on the Mount Rushmore of Survivor seasons, no matter what comes later. It came at a time in the 20s of Survivor where they were playing around with lots of different formats, and they weren't necessarily sure as to where they're going to go with the show. And it just takes one phenomenal cast and a couple of phenomenal production decisions to make the show amazing.
Every season that comes after Survivor Cagayan, Survivor hopes can be the next Survivor Cagayan.
I can't tell you why what made it such an epic season, but other than just the cast is fantastic.
We need to submit it to the Smithsonian, put it in a time capsule, have the children of the future open it up, and maybe they'll build statues of these contestants, not unlike what we saw on Island of the Idols. It is truly an immaculate piece of television.
The incredible thing about Survivor Cagayan is that in 2014, it came along and electrified a fan base and helped bring community to all these disparate fans of Survivor and got them all talking and flocking to social media and podcasts to talk about the show. But then in 2020, it comes to Netflix and it does it again for a whole new generation of people who may have never seen Survivor before that. And that's their first experience with Survivor, and they become new diehard fans of the show. It did it twice.
Even I can't deny the greatness of this season, Survivor Cagayan. The characters are crazy. The gameplay is fun. It's so energetic.
I think anybody who watched Cagayan and went on to play the game is definitely inspired in some way. I think Tony's just sheer determination and grit to win and grind all the way to the end is something that every player, including myself, took from when going out there to play. So it does have a very special place in Survivor history in terms of legacy, because sometimes, sheer determination or willpower can manifest the win for you. It didn't for me, but it is what it is.
Jeff is like a kid in a candy store, and Survivor is his baby. So when you're making moves and you have awesome tribal councils, and when we're done, he's just like, you guys killed it. Like, to hear that from Jeff was amazing. So we could tell we were making Papa Jeff proud.
I cannot think of another season in which more people came to play.
At the finale, Jeff came out and talked to us, and he said, me and Mark's been talking, and he said, by far, he said, this has been the best season that we've ever filmed up till season 28. And it was just like, I was thinking, oh man, bonus time, right? We're going to get all kinds of money. And I wish that didn't happen. But anyway.
What was so incredible about this cast was that it seemed like literally everyone came to play. And like that at the time, that was very novel. And it was really exciting to see that.
All of us all wanted to win so badly. We weren't there as super fans. We were there to win.
We all played, and we played hard.
If you look at all of the 46 seasons, I bet you Cagayan has, 3 or 4 of the top 25 players of all time in one season.
When you mix the characters and the personalities as well as the gameplay, and you have people who truly understand what Survivor is, not only a game, but a show, then you create magic.
I was the first openly gay Black man to play the show. And from me, speaking about my experiences, talking about representation and not just in color and, orientation and being queer and different things, and the variety of queer players that we have seen on these seasons, the spectrum of colors, shapes, and sizes that we get to see now. Wendell always says to me that I I was ahead of my time on Survivor. They just didn't know how to handle or take me. And so I'm just blessed to be a part of this franchise that not only has listened to us to change what diversity looks like, and now there are spaces for queer people to show up and be themselves, but not even just show up and be themselves, for them to show up and win the game.
Survivor Cagayan is iconic because it really created this whole new school of players and also shifted what Survivor is and how Survivor works.
I think when I was watching Cagayan, that was when I realized that when I wanted to apply for Survivor, I could be insane and still get on the show, you know? It's like I didn't have to go and try to be someone who's normal or whatever, because they had so many cracked people on Cagayan.
For me, my perspective on the season is personalized to how women have become more respected for being able to play the game. So the season as a whole, it holds up because it's a great nutty cast. But if we look at it historically in the realm of reality TV, to me, to live through going from being a villainized woman to casting even telling me after it came out on Netflix that I was the most referenced female player that new players wanted to play like young professional women. To see that change in my lifetime and how women can be perceived, like somebody needs to do a study on that. I'm guessing that Emily, who I've never met or spoken with or anything, is probably a very logical person. And her game, watching her play her game and seeing that they gave her the edit they could have possibly given to someone like me, was great to see a woman go out and just play the game. Like, we didn't used to be able to play the game.
You know, Brice as a forerunner, but then also as like an advocate, has had, you know, maybe one of the biggest impacts on Survivor of anybody.
In 2020, with the George Floyd killing, a Survivor group kind of organized together, and Jatia from this season and myself were kind of the spearheaders of it. We had Wendell Holland, we had Julia, we had Jamal, we had Ramona from the first season, we had Sabrina, and we all came together. And during this very crucial time in our country's history, we thought, what can we do to make this world, and I say world, a better place from our own perspective? And we started looking at Survivor, and we all started kind of like sharing our similar instances of how the edit really can be a driving force. And so we thought, there are some not great tropes of Black men, of Black women, the lack of representation of queer folks of color. We're such a rainbow of different people and shapes, and it seems like we're only getting like these very negative snippets. And so we all came together and we called CBS in. Not called them out, but we called them in and said, hey, this is a show that we love so much, and this is how we see it from our perspective.
Brice and I were involved in this movement, the Soul Survivor organization, to change how Survivor works so that we could tell more diverse stories and more full and colorful stories on screen for BIPOC and other marginalized groups. Incorporate diversity behind the scenes so that, you know, when you come off the island and you feeling some kind of way and you weren't, you know, you ready to take the braids out your hair if you're a Black girl, because you know you was probably wearing braids, you know, they actually have like appropriate hair products that works for your hair, or other things that they cater to contestants that go on Survivor to put that thought into people who might have differing experiences.
CBS was so gracious. We took a meeting. We had all the executives. Jeff was there, and we talked about our experiences, but not just about our experiences. We gave them a plan of how we believe that it should move forward. And CBS, to our surprise, took to the plan. And after that meeting, I want to say a month later, they committed to 50% BIPOC on all of their unscripted shows. My mom always told me, leave something better than you left it.
A player that should come back from Survivor Cagayan is myself.
So the player that they need to have back from Survivor Cagayan is me, herself. Yes.
If I had to select one person to come back, it would be me.
If they called me, I would do it again 100%.
I think that Trish Hegarty should absolutely 100% be asked back on Survivor because she kicked ass as an old bag. Now I'm 10 years later, I'm almost 60. They still need old bags and I'm stronger and smarter and wittier than ever. Why wouldn't they want me back on? Fools. Can't believe it's taken them this long to ask me.
If I were to get invited back to play another season of Survivor, there is only one person that I would want to come back with me, and that's my boy Spencer, so we could reunite Spensha.
I think that is that the only person.
I would like to see Kass play New Era Survivor, but I feel like I already did. I feel like I played Survivor New Era with Kass. Her name is Emily Flipp.
And, you know, you could definitely always have Tony. For any kind of legend season, you have to have Tony back from winning twice. The odds would be stacked against him, but I've seen them stacked against him before. I think it's very, very hard to have any type of Legends type season without Tony.
I would love to see Brice play again.
The person I would love to see back is Brice. And I am shocked they have not brought that guy back. He is quite possibly one of the funniest people in the entire world.
Please give Brice a second chance. Like that, we all want it. I mean, he would be amazing. He's also like jacked now, so you know he could be. He could really be on any of the tribes. Like Brice is you know brawn, brains, and beauty combined.
I'd love to see Brice. We were robbed. I mean, I think now in the Survivor superfan community, we know that Brice is one of the most entertaining people alive.
Not bringing back Brice Izyah is the best thing that could happen for any of the future players of Survivor, because Brice would mop the floor with you. Are you kidding me?
I do want to say to my castmates, thank you for being a part of the experience. I know it was a lot, right? It was a lot. And I appreciate everything that you have added to make Cagayan the iconic season. And I wish all of my castmates the best. Thank you for being iconic.
Whether it's been 10 years or whether it will be 50 years, I believe Cagayan will always be a Survivor classic. 100%.
The sky is the limit. And actually, the sky isn't the limit. You can go anywhere. And it's just a testament to the legacy that Survivor Cagayan is. And I am so happy and so honored to be a part of it.
It's an amazing feeling. It's surreal. I can't even express what I'm feeling right now. It's just, I just got to just soak it in, and just hopefully one of these days I'll comprehend how the magnitude of how big this game was, how huge it was. Right now, I'm just lost for words.